Hello, gamers and gamettes. This is Jeremy here, ready to talk about another game.
This is actually my friend Blaze. I am Jeremy, and I'm your host. Welcome to today's episode. Today's topic is one I've been really excited to talk about because it is a game which I have gained a great love for in recent times. It has a massive community, and I think everybody recognizes the name. Today we're talking about Bloodborne. Now, originally when I first came across this game, it wasn't really for me. I didn't feel like I wanted to play it because I preferred games which were slightly easier, and this is one which is known for being one of the hardest games you can ever play. And so originally I wasn't wanting to. However, at the time, while I was running a blog, which was before I started the podcast, Blaze actually said to me it would be a good one to talk about on there. And if I'm really serious about doing this, I should give it a go. So I did. I bought my own copy and started playing it. And I found after a while the difficulty didn't bother me as much, and I just started to feel a really strong love towards the game, and it's actually become one of my absolute favourite games.
Yeah, I remember buying it at EB Games, way back in like 2019, and I thought to myself like this looks like a cool game. I'd never heard of it before, and then I tried it, and it was hard. It was very difficult, and I got to the first boss and I kept dying. I was like, nah, this is it. Closed it, put it in the cupboard for a good 6-7 months, and I was like, I'll give this another go. And after that sense of accomplishment after that first boss, you just don't want to stop. You want to keep going, and because it's a good. I found my heart would race. When I was down to like one hit left, but I had one hit before I died. So it is a very accomplishing game.
Yeah, I find once you finally take down that first boss, you can't stop. You have to go and play more. Even though you die constantly, it's almost like you're completing the game out of spite, just to show it that it ain't that difficult.
I don't think I think there's the least amount of times I've died is a solid 15-20 times throughout the whole game.
Yeah, for me, I've probably died about 100 through an average game, but worth it. Definitely worth it. So the gameplay is fairly simple, like simple enough. You can get the hang of it quite quickly, but you still do have that sense of difficulty, which means it's more exciting to play it, but it's simple enough that you can get used to it within a matter of 10 minutes. And the combat is very well done. The customization you have with all the different weapons, both the right hand and left hand, so different guns and things, that is really exciting because each one does change your gameplay quite significantly. The fact that you cannot block is really quite a good thing to do, because instead of always just blocking, you have to dodge. You have to have quick reactions, and it makes it really exciting and fun.
The dodging, the not being able to block, I did actually like it. Like, I don't block in general. Like even games like God of War, where it's a lot easier, I'd still dodge.
More of a berserker.
Yeah. I personally, I'm a run in, get as much as you can done, and then run away. And with the way the bosses would come at you, no boss was the same in the sense of gameplay. So I couldn't run in with every boss and just wham.
You had to get a familiarity with the boss and find your own way of beating them.
I got into this very bad habit of always dodging right, but then some bosses' attacks would come from the left and would get me, and it shocked me, and I've had to learn to dodge separate ways. I've completed the game a solid 10, 15 times, and I still am learning the different ways or the differences between the bosses. But even smaller enemies shock me when they come out of nowhere and they kill me. Like, you know, even as a veteran player, they just, even the smaller enemies demolish.
Yeah, and the problem is, even if you're one of the best players in the world, one mistake is all it takes for you to die.
Oh, definitely.
One badly timed dodge or something, and you will die. And that's sort of what keeps people playing it. Is it's always a challenge, no matter how good you are.
Just a little story. I was watching this speedrunner. His name's Jesus. He is Toast. I was watching him just the other night. He was doing a Simon's Bow Max New Game run, and even then, like, this is a man that's put, you know, thousands of hours into the game. He still dies.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It sort of, you play it, I think, 7 times in total, and each time you replay the story for that save, it gets more difficult. So you can play it even as a higher level hunter. When you go to the next game, it's almost like you're weaker than you were when you started, because that's how much better the enemies are.
I'm just going to correct you there. It's, people think there's 7, but there's actually 6, and it is good at, you know, when you get into the new game plus, you're like, sweet, every other game's just giving me my abilities and I'm on the same difficulty. And then From Software, like, nah, screw you. We're gonna make you feel like you're nothing again.
I had thought what it was like the base game, and then there was up to New Game 6 or New Game 5, which would mean there's 6 different difficulties in total. Yeah. So I wasn't wrong.
You said 7.
I thought I said 6.
No, you said 7.
Well, still, so it is replayable to a long distance, and you can get really good. And the thing is that if you complete it on New Game Plus, when you go back to play the other game to begin with, it's nothing. You're chopping easily.
It I like the way with you know, I just want to switch up and look at the weapons. How every weapon has a different, like, a transformation, and then you can use that transformation in the form of an attack as well. Like, I found with, like, the saw cleave, where you could dodge, press the transformer button, and he'd do a swipe that would...
Yeah, I do love that one, and that's one I think a lot of people will consider the best weapon, because it's also the quickest. Obviously, I still use the Hunter Axe, usually. That's just the one that is easiest, but yeah, there are a lot of different weapons, like a surprising amount. And not only do they change the gameplay significantly, but they all look awesome. Like, I love the looks of them.
I'm really bad for getting the Hunter's Axe and then doing that cheese where you get Gascoigne on the stairs and you just... Yeah,
that's actually how I beat him the first time.
I still beat him.
It was mentioned like that, and I did it that way the first time. Because, you know, I was still new to the game and I wanted to be able to continue to further parts of the game. And even now, I doubt I'd be able to beat him without being overpowered. So
I think
that cheese sort of helps.
I think between that cheese and the cheese with Mikolash.
Yeah, pegging poison knives at him. Yeah, it's sort of, because at the point you are in both the games, they're very difficult bosses to beat. It's sort of, you got to have an advantage.
Oh, definitely.
Because after you die for the 15th time, it's either you cheese them or you throw your controller out the room.
I haven't lost a controller yet, but my controllers have taken a beating. Especially the Mikolash, when he one hits you with the Augur of Abratus.
Oh, I hated that.
Or a Call Beyond, when he does that cluster of a meteor attack. It's
that was the worst one.
Yeah.
Like, after a bit, I was able to time it so that when he did the tentacle one, I could...
You can dodge out.
Yeah, I could either dodge to the side and then use an attack, or if I actually just walked to the side, I could use a charged attack. And I got that easily, but then that extra one, the Call from Beyond, it killed me so many times, and I don't think numbers go as high as the amount of times I was swearing at that.
And the worst thing is, like, you can dodge as much as you want, but those little meteors follow you around. And
it's actually pegged as damn near impossible.
Yeah.
I avoided it one time out of like 100.
I found the best way to avoid it was to dodge into it. So as soon as it like takes off, you dodge forward into him. Because if you get hit with it, he takes some AoE damage as well. On the off chance, it's like a very slim chance. Does happen, and but oh man, I don't think there is any other name under the sun you can call someone. Like I just sat there dying the 100th time, swearing at this poor little dude that can't even hear me. He's just doing his job.
I don't feel sorry for him. I'm gonna swear at the bastard because he's impossible to beat.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's be real. He's just doing his job, and his job was there to kill you.
I mean, yeah, but my job is to kill him, so
yeah.
So get good. So yeah, that's something as well. Is like with the bosses, you'll find a difference with how you can beat them with the weapons as well.
Oh, definitely.
Like as well, for some of them, you need to attack quickly.
Yeah.
And so it's good to have it, and yeah, I think that needs to be appreciated because there is so much you can do to change the game a little bit that it does become like infinitely replayable.
Well, it's like the Bloodstaff beast. You go from the cleric beast where you can do like the heavy attacks because he's so slow, but then you go to the Bloodstaff beast where he's so quick you don't have time. You've got to, even Gascoigne, you don't have time. You've got to learn to do the parry, shoot him and then do the visceral attack.
Yeah, and the viscerals, that's another thing. When I first started the game, I was playing through it normally, doing alright. Blaze here mentioned, have you done the visceral attack yet? I'm there like, the hell is that? I have never heard of that.
I remember his face too. It was like when you show a toddler its toe for the first time. It was...
Oh, it was magic.
It was something magical when you show him.
And that is one of the most difficult things to master as well. It took me ages before I got it done even once. And after that, I still kept failing at it. And it took a very long time to get the time in. And then when you do, it is like magic. Even after you've done it for the 1000th time, it's just beautiful to watch.
I found... So when you get to Cathedral Ward with that weird looking dude in Odin Chapel... You walk out and you got those guys with either the stick or the lantern. Oh yeah,
those screaming face buggers.
I found they're the best to practice on with the visceral because their attack's not slow but it's not fast. It's a good pace and the timing is very vague in your timing. So they're the best to practice on.
And they're also very deliberate in their movements.
Oh, definitely.
Like other enemies that you come across. It's hard to tell when they're rearing up for an attack. They can attack you like that, suddenly you're dead. So with the others, there are just a few enemies which they're very deliberate with their attack, so you can see it, and then that's when you get good at it.
Yeah, but then there's some bosses you can't do it to, or some enemies you can't do it to.
Yeah, that's another thing. The fact that there is an immunity for some of them is... That's really good because it means you can't rely on that heavy damage.
Like
you have to do it the slow way.
Vicar Amelia, you can't. You got to get her into a staggered effect, and then get her down even more, and then you may be able to do it. Like I've only ever done it to Vicar Amelia like 3 times in every game. Like
yeah, I think I might have done it once, but even then I'm not sure.
But then there's bosses like Gascoigne or the Shadows of Yharnam where. It's quite easy to do because they're swing, shoot, visceral.
Yeah, it's sort of, I guess, a bit of a crutch against some enemies. Like if you're low on health and you do it, it's a good last card to play. It's like your trick card.
If you got that, there's one gem you can get. Is it a gem or a rune? A rune or a gem?
Blood gem, I think.
Yeah. That every visceral you do brings your health back up like 15 points.
I had one where I'm pretty sure it said like 200.
Or even better.
Yeah, there's some big ones like 200 or 300 which recovers most of your health, and it is a really good trick to play because if you're stuck in a bad time, you've got that to fall back on, and it adds a lot to it.
Oh, definitely, and like I found blood gems in the game as a just made the gameplay a bit nicer because then you can there are blood gems that increase your damage, but then there are blood gems that put bolt damage or fire damage on your weapon.
Yeah, that is another thing is they have each weapon has different types of damage you can deal. Like so if you're going to first one like Dark Beast Pile, I think it is, who's
an
electric.
Big picture.
You can go which I don't remember which one it is that damages him. I think fire.
I think it was fire.
So you can go and that's another thing. It has different classes as well. Like there are beasts where you've got ones which werewolf looking things, that type of one. They take damage from fire. So when you come to an area where those are the most common enemies, you can switch things a little bit so that you can deal more damage to them and get to that area easier.
But there are even bosses that have turned to beasts. So Cleric beasts, Gascoigne, Vicar Amelia, Bloodstarved beasts, they're beasts, so they take damage to fire. But then when you get to ones like Rome or the one Reborn, they're actually great ones or placebo great ones. So they take bolt damage. So you gotta switch it up and which like whether you apply fire paper or bolt paper to your weapon in those.
Yeah. The other thing that I like, for example, is with, say, the Molotovs, it also gives you an oil urn, which you can use so that you chuck that at an enemy, then you use the Molotov, and it does a ton of damage. It's sort of like you've got things which make each area a bit more powerful, so you can use two different items at once, which help raise things.
Yeah, the fact that I think the Molotovs are the only item that has.
I think they're the only specific one. Yeah.
Yeah, that has an add-on that makes it even more powerful, which is the oil. I did really like that in. Not that I ever use them. I'm a bit lazy and I just Molotov, but I did really like that aspect where you can just throw an oil urn and then your Molotov damage is
tripled almost. It's like incredible. And then there's the fact that once you reach a certain area, the enemies do that. Like you go to a certain one, like the Forbidden Forest or whatever it's called.
Forbidden Woods.
Forbidden Woods, yeah. And then there's one enemy who throws oil urns at you. Then you've got another enemy who holds a torch.
Yeah.
And they hit you and it ignites you.
But then, like in the Forbidden Forest, they've also got like lakes that are full of oil. So you walk. And they deal extra damage if you get tagged by a Molotov in there too.
Yeah, and as well as that, there's lakes of poison throughout the maps, that type of thing. It really, each new level is a new challenge in a different way, and it is really cool.
And no area is ever the same. They've got different styles of beasts or different styles of enemies in general in every area. Like you got Central Yarnum that's got your Yarnamites that have gone beast, and then you go into Old Yarnum where the beasts are even more beastly and
they're fully turned.
And they've got things like poison attacks and whatnot. But then you go into Yahagul, and they're like big pillar looking beasts with skulls everywhere. Like
it's not only are there a huge amount of different enemies in different areas, but the level design itself is beautiful. There are so many sights to see throughout it. And then there's the fact that when you beat a boss, the time of day changes and it looks completely different. Every level looks just so different colour, that type of thing.
Yeah, the old Victorian horror, like I was never a fan of the old Victorian horror look, and then I played Bloodborne and I was like, oh, this is it's beautiful. And then small intricate details as well. Like if you go to Old Yarnum and you look, you get to that point after the church before you go up go into the other part of Old Yarnum. If you look across the lake, there's actually one of the werewolves hanging onto the side of a building.
Yeah.
Like small details like that are really well done.
And as well as that, the amygdalas, when you have a certain amount of the wisdom,
I think it's 15 or 20.
Is it insight? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah,
that one. Once you have a certain amount, you can see this massive beast hanging off the side, like the great one, the amygdala. And it's interesting that it adds more to the gameplay. When you have a certain amount of the insight, you see more. There's hidden secrets throughout the game, and that is always something I think you need to have in a game, is secrets to find, because it keeps people playing it.
I memorized this, so it was 15 insight, you can see the amygdalas, and everything gets a bit more difficult, and then 30 insight is the blood moon, and you hear a child crying constantly. So just the two differences. But then I'm really bad. I like easy mode, so I'll keep my insight right down so that it's easy. But it's nice that sometimes if you get that, you get little changes in the world where, like you said, amygdalas hanging from the roof, children crying, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
it just makes it a little more horrifying,
Yeah, exactly. It shows you sort of there's a lot more stuff going on in this world. It adds an air of mystery, which in a game like this, you got to have some mystery.
But then it also affects, like some bosses, like the Witches of Hemwick. If you go in with absolutely zero insight, those madmen don't spawn. It's just the witches. Whereas if you have one insight, they spawn. If you have 15, they spawn. I think 4 of them spawn at once.
It means there's a range of difficulty in each difficulty setting. It's sort of in new game where it's the easiest you can play that game. It can make it more difficult, and then when you go to the next one, it's the same sort of thing. Without insight, it's a bit easier. With it, it's significantly more difficult. It sort of means you can replay it 100 times, and the gameplay will be different every time.
And it's just really good to use as a currency as well, because you can buy different outfits, and you can't buy any. I haven't noticed any weapons, but different outfits or resources. I bought Ritual Blood 5 with insight. Cost 30 insight, but it's good to have as a second resource to buy things as well.
Yeah, it is quite good to have that option, and how it's also a different sort of store setup as well, a little bit different. And then you can buy armors there. I find the armors didn't make as much a difference to the gameplay for me, but instead what I would do is go for them based on looks. I would find one which looked really cool and would... I
think that's what they're mainly there for, is looks, because I sort of compared stats when I was going through my first few playthroughs, and I was like, there's little differences, but one's always greater than the other in some. So I always picked that outfit you find in Yahagul with the cage, and he's got the hood. I can't remember what it was called. You find it on a carriage in Yahagul. I always wear that.
I liked the one you get from Eileen, I think, the crow, where you have the crow mask.
Yeah.
I found that looked really cool. I had that as well as a looking witch hat thing with flared robes. It looked spectacular. I actually took a picture of it, and it was one of the first things I posted on my Instagram. Was a picture of that, because I just loved the way he looked, and it says that the stats for each armor are actually quite different, but I found even when it said there was a huge difference between them, I didn't notice a difference to gameplay. So it's sort of the best that it would do was be a placebo effect type thing. So all I ever did was go by looks.
So I've just brought up your Instagram, And that isn't Eileen's outfit. That is actually the Madman's outfit, or the
I thought the mask was Eileen's.
Nah.
Oh, okay, no, it was Skull.
Yeah, it's
Gotcha. I think I had the crow mask on after I took that picture then.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I do know what you mean. Like the crow mask and just that whole outfit does look good.
Yeah, that crow mask I found I liked especially because it's like the plague doctors of old. That sort of style. A lot of people like the way that looked, and I found that it looked damn good in the game.
I actually let's talk about Alfred the Blood Racist. I did actually like the look of his garb, the whole executioner's garb with that big metal head. Not that I used a metal head, I liked the look of his garb. That white executioner's garb was really cool.
I don't remember it as well, but yeah, the amount of different armors is quite surprising, and each look cool in their own way. And yeah, as you said, like that's another thing which was really well made out was there is so much you can change to make your character look a bit different, and it looks really cool. No, even before you start the game, you can have your character look really weird with neon green hair, that type of thing, and I think it's cool. But yeah, just especially the armors, I always have to appreciate when they have that variability for all the armors, all the visual effects changing it. It's awesome to look at.
I just want to jump back for a second to the insight thing. I do. We'll talk a bit about lore a bit later on, but I do like how the blood echoes you collect and the insight you collect are actually very well connected to the lore itself.
Yeah. Especially that as well, and the fact that everything is done by the blood, obviously because it's called Bloodborne. Blood is very important to it, but yeah, from a lore aspect, it's a fascinating thing. It tells untold power, and I absolutely love that.
If you do it, like as I said, we'll talk about lore a bit later, but if you delve right deep into it, blood was everything. Blood is everything, and it's just amazing how it is, how your two gameplay currencies are very well connected to the lore, whereas a lot of games I've found are the currency's not so connected. Like a lot of games are like money. That's okay, but if it's if it's say like in this one, blood, it's got to be connected to the lore or the story, otherwise it just makes no sense.
Yeah, like with a lot of games, it's okay for it to be money because there's no fantasy aspect to the games themselves, but for a game such as this, there has to be some connection because this isn't our world. This is a dystopia. Everything in it is different, so there has to be more explanation. It's similar with all the Dark Souls games where the currency is souls.
But it's I played one game called The Darkness, and I don't think it's a currency, but you eat hearts to gain power, but it was never actually fully explained how the hearts of someone else gains your power, and it just seems very distant from the lore itself, or the story itself. Yeah,
there's not as much care put into the game when they do it like that because it sort of seems like they didn't want there to be that connection, With a game like Bloodborne, there is so much love put into it that they go and make all these secrets and difficulties to find these things out, and it adds a lot more to the game because of how much time is poured into it, and you can't beat it. I apologise for the sudden change in audio. We had urgent matters to attend to, but moving swiftly on with the episode, I want to talk a little bit more about the visuals and audio itself. First of all, the style of it, the Victorian horror sort of style. While I had never really encountered much of it previously, I am a really, really big fan of how they handled it. The visuals throughout the entire game are absolutely gorgeous. There's sort of a tense feeling around where you go. there's a mystery set into it as well, and it really fits the type of game that they've made.
I'm a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft's work. Call of Cthulhu, Dunwich Horror, Reanimator, and the Victorian horror in the game was just it was spectacular. The brick flooring, the wooden floors inside the buildings, all the ladders and the heavy doors and gates,
and the carriages.
The carriages were, and even though you couldn't drive them, Miyazaki, I want Bloodborne cart. It was all very well placed in the sense that it made sense where it was, and the coffins laying on the street was very era appropriate.
Yeah. The way that the setting also, it has blood everywhere, that sort of thing. It tells you that there's been a lot that has happened in that setting. It sort of shows the history of it, and it's quite interesting.
And for a game that only runs 30 frames per second, it runs surprisingly smoothly and looks very beautiful.
Yeah.
The graphics are very, very well done. It's very, very well done.
Yeah. And as I mentioned briefly earlier, the way that every time you beat a boss, it sort of, the time of day shifts, and the entire world looks completely different. I noticed at one point, especially the first time I beat a boss, everything changed. It even looked clearer because the way the colouring was, there was more contrast to it, and it looked absolutely gorgeous. And then you can see it from normal afternoon to the dead of night. Everything changes.
It's just it's and the cutscenes themselves too are very well done. It looks very similar to the game you're playing. It's not one of these games where the cutscenes are all cinematic. It almost looks as if you're doing it. You're obviously not because it's a cutscene, but it's just very well done in that sense.
Yeah, it's less jarring because it's done so well and so smoothly. And as well as that, in the cutscenes, the voice acting, for example, is good. It fits each character very well. That you've got the old guy. He has, you can tell that he's old just by the sound of his voice. And for the doll, for example, the way she talks, you can tell that there's something behind her. There's an air of mystery, and the way she talks is really well done. It's just all acted out beautifully.
Don't forget the doll is evil.
I don't know the lore well enough to be able to discuss that in depth.
I'll explain it to you later.
Yeah.
But it is, and the audio is very, the music matches. When you go into a boss fight, you get that big blast of music. I get scared. I get really scared because I know I'm about to either die.
You tense up.
I get very tense because that music, and all the voice acting too. Not only with the voice acting and the talking of German and the doll and everyone else, in the sense of when you reach Hemwick Channel with the witches screaming. That was very well done. Sounds very realistic. When I first heard that, I got a little scared.
As well as that, some of the side characters, there are quite a few where you can show them to a safe place for it, and each of them has their own personality.
Oh, definitely.
It's all very unique personality, and I love it. It's so much work put into it.
My favourite's got to be Ariana. Is it Ariana or Adriana?
I thought it was Ariana.
I think it's Ariana, the whore you find in what's that place called? Cathedral Ward. You find her not in the sense that I'm a sicko and I like whores. In the sense that her personality is so different to everyone else you find. She's unaffected. She's somewhat she's just unaffected,
she's actually the nicest one of the characters too. I found.
Oh, definitely, she's nice. It's just a shame that spoilers. She gets stabbed by that healing church lady.
Not necessarily though. That depends on what you do as the player.
Yeah, it depends on your actions in the game that affect the different outcomes. But
and even that, like having different outcomes to what you do as a player for side characters is really well done.
And I also like the fact that she's pregnant because of the blood she carries. She ends up being pregnant if she doesn't get stabbed, and she has that child. And you can take one of the umbilical cords from her.
That is one interesting aspect of the game as well. Is those umbilical cords that you can collect. That they sort of open up a new boss, a secret boss.
Super secret boss, you know.
And be aware, we will be talking about all the bosses in depth, probably in a part 2. But we will be talking about all of them because there's a lot to appreciate there. And I do want to discuss it fully. But back onto the visuals and audio part of it, every enemy has different sounds they make too.
Oh, definitely. And they have different looks.
Yeah.
Different looks.
There are similar ones where it's sort of the same sort of enemy but stronger, all that type of thing. But even still, there is a huge array from vaguely human-looking characters to these abominations. It's beautifully done. And for example, the one thing I wanted to appreciate was the bosses. They each have their own audio. Not just in looks, like they have these unholy sounds that really send shivers up your spine.
Well, how intimidating was it when you reach your first boss, the cleric beast? You reach that boss, and before he even jumps over that building, you hear this mad just screech.
Yeah, this high pitched screech. I hate it. I at one point had to turn it down because I was dying to him so much, and all I could hear was this bastard screaming at me, and it was awful.
I just want to,
but at the same time, beautiful.
I just want to so you guys can get it. I'm gonna play the screech the cleric beast makes.
Just don't hold it too close to the mic because you'll blast their ears.
Headphone users beware.
Yeah, this could be a bit loud
when it loads.
But I think it's good to hear this so that you can actually tell what it's like.
Yeah, so you got a sense of the music there as well, but just that screech, there's the first boss you verse, and that screech before he even enters the arena is just it is mind sucking. It is intimidating.
Yeah, it makes you very tense, and it in a way it sort of tells you how powerful this beast is going to be. Because if it makes a noise like that, it's going to be a bastard to verse. You can tell, and it is beautiful. While the sound is obviously very unnerving, they couldn't have done it better, in my opinion.
No,
noises like that are incredible.
But then you got some bosses that don't make no noise at all. Have you ever heard Rom make a noise?
No, Rom never makes a noise at all.
The Shadows Beyond them don't make noise. Like there are a lot of bosses that don't make a noise.
And then there's even bosses who actually flat out talk to you.
Yeah.
Because you've got like old hunters who went corrupt or went beast, basically. And you have them actually talking to you throughout it. So you get a taste of everything. You know, you've got this unholy creation, one of the great ones, this no sound at all, and a talking sound. It really contrasts them and makes each boss even better.
My favourite's got to be Vikramelia with her sound effects. Again, I'm gonna find it and play it for you because it just
it's sort of impossible to describe. You have to hear it, otherwise you don't get to appreciate it fully. Yeah. I know a lot of the people listening to this will have already heard it, but for those who haven't, I think it's good to show them exactly what it's like. Ignore the ad. They're not sponsors, so they don't get any any advertising from me.
We're sponsoring Johnny Walker now, apparently.
Don't know who the hell that is, so...
It's an alcohol company.
Alright, playing it now.
So the different sounds to the attacks as well. The attack sounds, like if they don't land, the blood sloshing in general when an attack lands is beautiful.
The blood splatter.
But that was Vicar Amelia in the boss fight, so she's yelling, she's screaming, everything is hitting, you can hear it. It's all just beautifully done. It obviously sounds a lot better when it's coming straight from your TV.
Yeah, it will sound spectacular. And for those who haven't played it, I cannot recommend it enough. I know it will take some adjustment too because of how difficult the game is, but it is so worth it to experience everything for yourself.
Definitely.
Videos just don't do it justice.
For Dark Souls veterans who haven't played this, you're in for a treat because it's so different. So different.
I played this game before I ever played Dark Souls rather, and I probably never would have even tried Dark Souls, which I'm actually getting into at the moment. I never would have done it if it weren't for Bloodborne. I know it was released a long time after, but it was, I think, the best game you could play as a first time to the universe, I guess.
I think, like, if you're a Dark Souls veteran, you haven't played Bloodborne, the pace is a lot faster. Like Dark Souls is it's hard. It's difficult, but it's slow. The dodging's slow. The attacks are slow. And Miyazaki did a good job at upping the pace to make it a fast-paced action game. You know.
Yeah, I think it is a bit more exciting to play this one.
Oh, very, very much so.
Okay, so we mentioned it briefly earlier about the replayability, but I wanted to actually make a short statement on it specifically. As we sort of said, there are a lot of different weapons in the game. You can choose from 3 starting weapons, and you can find a lot throughout the game. So you get to try everything again. And because there are 2 different weapons, a right-handed one, which would be swords or cleavers, that type of thing, and a gun on the left side, there are more matches to make. So you can match one gun with 8 different weapons and vice versa. It adds a lot to it that there are so many different gameplay styles you can go for.
Replayability. It is replayable. Like there are so many different ways you can play it, and once you I personally have played it 10, 15, nearly 20 times. Never gone over a New Game Plus. But it just, because everything is so broad, you could do so many different things. There are bosses you can skip. There are bosses you probably have missed. There are weapons you can now use. There are weapons you can, now not use.
And even if you replay the game with the exact same weapons, for example, there are 3 different endings to it, which we will talk about at a later point. So there are 3 different endings. So for every different set you do, you can choose a different ending. You can choose to save one person and not another, that sort of thing. There is so much that can happen that you can play it again and again and again with different stuff happening, and you can even play it doing the exact same thing just because it's a good game to play. You have a lot of fun doing it.
I very much found that I found myself doing meme runs. Do you know what a meme run is?
No.
No, it's where you see some. It's hard to describe. It's where you do a certain run with certain weapons. So my last meme run was what was it? What did I do? I think it was 2 guns. So that one that I think it was the
There's a sword weapon which also fires, if that's
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
And
I can't remember the name of it.
It starts with R. So what I was doing,
Reptilash or something?
yeah, something like that.
Some weird name that I don't know the pronunciation of.
And it was a dual wielding gun run. So I could only use both guns. I only got 2 bosses in, and I kept dying, and I couldn't go any further. But that's what I mean. There are so many different runs you can do, and it's all very new, all very exciting.
Yeah, and that actually is a good way to segment into the next thing we want to talk about, which is the community. So there is a huge community for this game. Some people who have been streaming this game for as long as it's been out, and still today are playing it. They do different challenges. They try and speed run the game, where they find shortcuts and exploit glitches to get to the next area or whatever else. There is a huge love for this game, where people want to just keep replaying it and keep talking about it.
Well, the community is very good. Like I'm a part of a group on Facebook. It is just called Bloodborne. There's 20-something thousand members, and that group was created literally as soon as the game came out and they started playing it. And I still get 10 to 15 notifications that someone's posted in that group about Bloodborne. Or I found this. Is this new? Or can you help me with this bit? And the community is so helpful, because you can do your multiplayer on there, which we haven't talked about a lot. You can do multiplayer.
That is something to mention. It means that if you're stuck on any bosses, you can bring in a more experienced player to help you beat it.
Oh, definitely.
It helps for someone who is stuck.
The community is so helpful with that. I don't even have to set a password and ask on Facebook. I can just walk up to the boss room, ring the bell, and some random will pop in and help me with the boss. And it's great. Yeah, it's great. It's not toxic like, say, COD or Fortnite.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily as fact to the game as more the community themselves. Obviously the game does influence a lot, and I think the love for the game, it keeps the people who love the game playing it, and the people who don't like it so much don't play it. So you're only left with those who like to help other people out, like to replay it, that sort of thing. So you're left with the best people to help you in the game,
It's just the community is very awesome. But then there are some, as with every community, there are some people that aren't as great. When you get to the Nightmare Immensis and your Sinister Bell is always going off, I have started turning my internet off when I get to that area, because there was just people coming in and I get that's part of the game. People come in, they try and kill you in that area.
It's not that it's a bad person. They're just looking for a challenge.
Yeah.
And that's their prerogative. And if they beat you, it just means they're more familiar with the game. They're just quite skilled at it, which good on them. But sometimes it is easy to avoid it. Yeah.
But when it's the same person over and over, and you're just trying to get through the level, but they just keep invading, and
if it's the same person, it gets frustrating.
And when they've got you, when they're doing things like stun locks on you, with a flame sprayer, they can just get you in a constant visceral. And I don't see that as fair if they're exploiting glitches to feed you.
It's less fair then. As I said, there will always be people like that, but thankfully, it is avoidable. Like you won't always have people attacking you, and when you do, they're not always bad, but you got to expect the bad to come with the good,
But the community is very helpful. I mentioned a Twitch streamer, Hayes Lucius Toast. His community in general of viewers, I've had multiples of them help me with Bloodborne. Even in the comments on his streams, they'll give me advice, offer to jump in and help me with the game. So it's not just one community; it's a whole bunch of communities, or Twitch streamers communities for this game that will help you in general.
I am not as familiar with said streamer, but I've seen a little bit of his work, and the way he plays it, and you can see how much he likes the game. It is infectious. Sort of like how they say laughter is contagious. It's you feel the love, and then it makes you love the game more. And I think that's a good thing to have in every community. And he would be one of the best for that and for this community.
Definitely.
So we've talked about quite a bit so far. I'm probably at this point. I'm thinking I will make a part 2 instead of 1. Otherwise, this will be a very, very long video. It's already the longest episode I've made so far, and there is still a lot more to talk about. So this will be part 1, and in next episode we will be talking more about the lore. We'll discuss all the bosses individually, that style of thing. I hope you'll be joining me next episode. Thank you, Blaze, for coming in.
Thank you for having me on here.
And don't worry, he will be here next episode. That will be the very next one I release, which will be next week. Thank you for listening. This is Not So Hardcore Gaming. I'm Jeremy, signing off.